has begun. All right, Craig and Paul, State of Florida updated its NIL legislation. This was yesterday, pulling back on restrictions while allowing universities to provide additional entrepreneurial workshops to their players.
I think this was inevitable, and at least and most state laws leave a lot of things out, or were, especially with NIL, kind of cookie cutter, or we can't have this, where they were seemingly worried about making the NCAA happy. And I just think that, part of the thing the NCAA has to do when it comes to making new rules and the new governance is cut the crap when it comes to, well, we're going to allow this, but we're going to put this little thin veil between that no one can go through, as if they can't. And you can call this the Jaden Rashada law right here, because what happened, and yes, Billy Napier and Mike Norvell were both standing up on stage together. But make no mistake, the reason this changed is because there are big money donors at the University of Florida, which is the biggest university and has the most money in that state by far, that were pissed off about how that went down. And then we're kind of reasonably going, well, why isn't the coach or the university or the athletic department able to help facilitate these things? Because Billy Napier has to sit there looking like a jackass because he didn't really know. He knew, broad strokes of these things, but he's not really allowed to know about or talk about or engage in all this stuff. So why not just look, if we're not going to have rules that are reasonably enforceable, tear down the wall, let the university try and regulate it or funnel the right people in, and then it's a little bit cleaner. It's still not going to be perfect, but this is better than pretending there's a rule.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's more opening it up for, whatever they want to happen, basically. I mean, now the schools are more directly involved, whereas they weren't supposed to be before. I don't buy for a second that they weren't. I don't buy for a second that they were all just like, no, I'm sorry, we're hands off. You have to deal with this organization. I think that they were, at the very bare minimum, all behind the scenes, pulling strings with whatever organizations were helping them to land players ultimately. I just don't believe for a second in an industry where everybody looks for every competitive advantage imaginable that there weren't people trying to find their way around or finding their way around. And now there's less room to have to find your way around because they got their way. And now the schools can be more involved and help facilitate these deals. And we can stop pretending in the state of Florida like that wasn't already going on anyway. So it's just like, why are there even any rules at this point?
Well, that's a good point.
Seriously, like, why are there even any rules? And if you're one of those states, it's like hardcore about this, which I don't even know what that would
Georgia
mean.
is apparently
that won't last much longer. I mean, because again, what is the point? Nobody's balking at these rules. They're all finding ways around it anyways. All the schools who would typically find an advantage have already found one. All the schools that can exploit it, however they best can, are already finding ways to do that. And I just think a lot of this enforcement is super flimsy at best. So, I mean, I'm not surprised that Florida, looking around the rest of the country, decided or had some conversations with politicians and whatever they had to do to make today happen to go ahead and act and make sure that they didn't get left behind because they were trying to be too stringent on what is allowed. So, now you see comments from Billy Napier and Mike Norvell of like, this is long overdue. And, they're super excited, as I'm sure they should be, because there's less, in their way. Not in their way, even though it very much is their way. Now, whatever hurdles there might have been before, a few of those have been knocked down, and it's just a lot more free and clear to go and get your NIL money flowing to these players that you want on your campuses. So a win for the players, a win for the schools, and just more I don't know, it's egg on the face. I don't know about that, but just more of, this question in my mind of like, what's the point of any of these NIL rules at this stage? Because it doesn't seem like anything really gets enforced or will be enforced. And nor should, most people want them to be. I think there's a lot of people, at least maybe not most, but a lot of people who feel like that should be the way that it is, that schools should be able to help facilitate some of these deals. So if you're in that camp, today was a win for you, and we'll see how it benefits the Gators and the Noles and the Hurricanes and everyone else. UCF, obviously, this is news for them too. We'll see how it benefits them all in the future and what, this might mean for a Georgia or another state that maybe is still a little bit tighter than others, who looks around and suddenly realizes, hey, we're one of the only ones that still has rules at this point. Why? Why are we hurting ourselves? And a big step forward for the state of Florida.
All right, so Paul, Florida and Florida State are involved in that. Of course, both of them, as you mentioned, with both Napier and Mike Norvell on stage with Governor DeSantis on the House Bill 7B. And then there's, of course,